Hi. We're going to look at chapter 27 in the Tao Te Ching, which I have called Realized Leadership. First, I'm just going to read through the RDA translation, and then we'll kind of look at the word for word, the simple word for word translation, which is on the left side, and the right side together, just to look at how I put this into modern English. And then, of course, we'll look at another translation. So first, this is the Regina Akers translation of chapter 27. Those who have realized enlightened wisdom leave no trace after performing good deeds. Speak freely without causing harm. Accomplish without over-planning, and rectify without keeping tally. Bring matters to a lasting conclusion without controlling. Foster enduring relationships without binding protocol, and resolve conflict without reoccurrence. Therefore, sages routinely help people and reject or abandon no one. Routinely help matters and reject or abandon nothing. This is called realized wisdom. The realized person is a teacher for those who are not realized. Non-realized people provide support to realized leaders. If people don't value their teacher, or a leader doesn't appreciate the people's support, although the leader's knowledge may be great, there is still considerable confusion. This is important, yet underemphasized. So as I mentioned, we're going to look at this chapter a line at a time, first looking at the simple word for word translation, and then looking at how I brought that into modern English. So the very first line says, good actions, no rut mark. Good actions, no rut mark. And with a rut mark, I think of, well, out by Dodge City, Kansas, there's a place where you can stop and you can see where the covered wagons followed the trail going west. And even to this day, there's like rut marks, right, in the prairie. So that's what I think of. They traveled along and they left these rut marks behind that are still there more than a century later. But this translation said, good actions, no rut mark. Well, first of all, if we look at the modern English translation, I added a line at the beginning. I said, those who have realized enlightened wisdom. So those who have realized enlightened wisdom are able to live in the way that we see. In other words, they're able to do good actions with no rut mark. Those who have not realized enlightened wisdom may not live in this particular way. So good actions, no rut mark. I translate it as leave no trace after performing good deeds. So for example, if I donate money, I do not need to tell everyone that I donated the money. If I help someone in some other way, I don't need to tell everyone that I helped or have that person tell everyone that I helped. I don't need the attention on me. I'm not doing good deeds in order to place attention on me. Good actions, no rut mark. Those who have realized enlightened wisdom leave no trace after performing good deeds. The next line, good words, no blemish, blame. Speak freely without causing harm. sometimes when we are in life, especially if we happen to have a leadership position in some way, but not only under those circumstances, sometimes in life we have to provide constructive criticism. It's our job to do that, or we have to correct someone. It's our job to do that. What this is saying is those who have realized enlightened wisdom are able to speak freely. They're able to share whatever it is their role to share, but without causing harm, without blemish, without blame. For example, if I need to speak to someone about, well, I'm an HOA treasurer. So let's imagine someone is not paying their dues and I need to speak to them about that. I'm able to speak to them in a way where I'm not blaming them in my mind. I'm not angry at them for not having paid their dues. And so I'm able to just be very practical. I'm able to say, look, these are the fees that are adding up. This is when dues are due again. It's just going to add up even faster. It would be helpful if you pay your dues sooner, right? Before it really adds up and really gets big and really gets unmanageable. I could just explain the situation in a way that is not blaming and hopefully not leaving a blemish. Now, I am not responsible for how they interpret it. So if in their mind they're hearing, oh, I'm bad, I'm guilty, I'm not good enough, she hates me, and they believe that, well, that's on them. But I am able to speak freely without judgment, without guilt, without fear, because of enlightened wisdom. The next line, good number, no use counter. You remember I think the way I'm remembering it in my mind, we played with these Chinese counters that had these beads that you slid around when I was in elementary school. I don't really remember how they worked, but I'm sure that's the counter that's being spoken about here. Good number, no use counter. Well, I actually saw a couple of ways of interpreting that. So instead of deciding between them, I just put them both in the modern English translation. Those who have realized enlightened wisdom accomplish without over-planning and rectify without keeping tally, right? So there's always some planning that goes into certain things. For example, I'm taking a trip to Hawaii next week, and there was certainly some planning that needed to happen there. We needed to get plane tickets. We needed to get a place to stay. There were some things we wanted to do that need reservations. So that's a useful amount of planning. But over planning would be imagining how I'm going to experience this, putting expectations on everything, every little detail imagined in my mind in advance. Things are accomplished better when a certain amount is left to be dealt with in the present. So there may be some practical planning that needs to happen in advance. Maybe you need to schedule a meeting so everybody knows when to show up and be together. Maybe the meeting even knows and it needs an agenda. But planning in the mind how the conversations are going to go, who's going to say what and what you're going to say back, that doesn't need to happen, right? That is better in the moment with the flow of the Tao. So accomplish without over planning and rectify without keeping tally. Now, rectify literally means put right. So, or correct, but put right. So let's say there's something that isn't right, and I know it isn't right. Maybe a job isn't getting done the way it needs to be done according to how we agreed with the customer, or anything, anything isn't, it needs to be put right. This says I am able to rectify or put right without keeping tally. So if I have to talk to my child, for example, about not doing the chores around the house that they're scheduled to do. I can talk to my child about that, but I don't have to hold on to it in my head. If it happens again next week, I can talk to them again next week. And if it happens again the week after that, I can talk to them again. But I don't need to be, I have been talking to you about this for 6 weeks and you are right. I don't need to hold on to the past. I can always be in the present, dealing with it in the present, in whatever way is feeling appropriate in the present. So good number, no use counter. Accomplish without over planning and rectify without keeping tally. I'm not focused on the future, over planning. I'm not holding on to the past, keeping tally. I'm primarily focused in the present and being with the present situation along with the flow of the Tao. The next line, good close, no shut door bar, and cannot open. Now a door bar is, it's a bar that you put inside these hinges on the inside of the door to lock the door so people can't get in, right? You lock your door. So this says good close, the door is closed, no shut door bar, it isn't locked, and cannot open, and yet people cannot open it. So it's shut, not locked, and still people can't open it. So here's the way I brought that into modern English. Bring matters to a lasting conclusion without controlling. Bring matters to a lasting conclusion. Good close and cannot open. This matter is settled without controlling, no shut door bar. So what's happening is I am working with people, collaborating with people as equals. And as we work as equals to resolve whatever needs to be resolved, we're able to find that resolution. Of course, I am paying attention to my intuition, listening to the Tao in my part of the collaboration. But I'm not attempting to control anything. Next line. Good tie, no rope, treaty, and no can divide. So good tie, something's tied, in a good way, right? It's tied up with a bow, we might say. No rope, yet there was no rope used. Treaty, or we could call that agreement, and no can divide. Again, it has a lasting conclusion, right? So I translated that again in 2 different ways. I saw 2 different interpretations of that. I did not choose between them. I put them both in the translation. Those who have realized enlightened wisdom foster enduring relationships, right? Good tie, right? Enduring relationships without binding protocol, no rope. We don't have strict rules about how we are to be with one another. We're forming relationships based on mutual respect and freedom. Foster enduring relationships without binding protocol. And then the other way I saw to translate this, and resolve conflict, good tie, treaty, right? Without reoccurrence, and no one can divide. So even working things out with people that might be considered, well, our enemies, our foes, the ones we don't get along with, the ones we have challenges with, resolving conflicts, even with them, without reoccurrence, being able to get onto an agreement or a treaty, an agreement with my neighbors, even with our family members, with our co-workers, with whoever, right? So let me just read this first paragraph again, and then we'll move into the second paragraph. Those who have realized enlightened wisdom leave no trace after performing good deeds. Speak freely without causing harm. Accomplish without over-planning. And rectify without keeping tally. Bring matters to a lasting conclusion without controlling. Foster enduring relationships without binding protocol. And resolve conflict without reoccurrence. Now, if we look at the word for word, it says, therefore, sage person. And so, of course, I just said, therefore, sages always good rescue people, hence, no reject or abandon people. Routinely help people and reject or abandon no one. Always good rescue matter. Hence, no reject, abandon matter. Routinely help matters and reject or abandon nothing. In other words, the sage, the one with enlightened wisdom, is able to face what comes before them. They're able to face it with equanimity. They're able to face it with wisdom. They don't need to run and hide or avoid anything. What comes to them to be dealt with is dealt with wisdom. Is name inherit bright. Is name means this is called. Inherit bright. Realized wisdom. But because this word is inherit, realized here doesn't mean learned or acquired. It means the wisdom is already provided. It's already here. What's happened is I have learned to turn my attention to it. Of course, in order to turn my attention to it, to what's already here, I also have to know all of the hogwash that's in the mind that needs to be ignored, all of the judgment, all of the it should be this way instead of that way, all of the I'm right and they're wrong, all of the I'm better and they're less, or I'm less and they're better, or all of that other stuff that is not realized wisdom. I know not to pay attention to that. And so therefore, I am aware of what's already here that guides me perfectly. It's inherited. Is name, inherit, bright. This is called realized wisdom. So the second paragraph says, therefore, sages routinely help people and reject or abandon no one. Routinely help matters and reject or abandon nothing. This is called realized wisdom. Now the last paragraph. Therefore, good, and I put in parentheses, at person, no good at people of teacher. Now let me just tell you, most people did not use the at in parentheses. They said, therefore, good person, no good people of teacher, which means they might have translated it in this way. The good person is the teacher for the bad people. It's a very common translation. But when I looked at the dictionary, I found that this particular Chinese character could mean good. It could also mean good at. And that made so much more sense to me. Instead of saying the good person is the bad person's teacher, this is saying the one who is realized, the one who has good at being centered in the Tao, is the teacher of the person who is not yet good at being centered in the Tao. We don't have good people and bad people. We have maybe more experienced people and less experienced people, right? Not a judgment. So Therefore, good at person, no good at people, of teacher. The realized person is a teacher for those who are not realized. No good at people, one who is good at, person of resources, support, provide. So no good at people are non-realized people. And this says that the realized person is the one they provide resources or support to. No good at people, one who is good at person, of, pointing back to, resources, support, provide. I translated that as non-realized people provide support to realized leaders. Now, what does this mean? Well, to me, it's perfectly natural. They are in relationship. The realized person is a teacher for those who are not realized, which means they're around each other. They're sharing an orbit. And so in some way, because they are in relationship, those non-realized people are providing support to the leader. What type of support? Well, I think that could vary. In some cases, when we're talking about spiritual teachers, we might be talking about donation of money. We might be talking about scheduling their travels and their talks. We might be talking about helping maintain their ashram if they have an ashram. But when we're talking about everyday realized people, if I'm a manager, well, these are the people who work for me. And because of the way I collaborate with them, because I see them as equals, they don't work for me in a controlling way. They're not controlled and forced to do their jobs. They happily support our shared mission, our shared role, our shared job. Sometimes this can also mean that they are my teachers. They are helping me to further my realizing by the way that my being reflects on them. I can tell when I slip into ego because of the way they suddenly react. This gives me the chance to look back at myself. And I'm sure there are other ways that they can support or provide resources for the leader. But what this primarily means is the realized leader is not in a world by themselves, all alone, having nothing to do with those non-realized people. There is a relationship going here. And that relationship is a vital part of the realized person's being. And of course, the realized person is a vital part of the being of the non-realized. There's a connection there, which brings them together. So, no good at people, one who is good at person, of resources, support, provide, or non-realized people provide support to realized leaders. Next, word for word. No valuable their teacher, no love his, her support, although knowledge, big confused. No valuable their teacher, I translate it as, if people don't value their teacher, they don't value the one with enlightened wisdom, no love his, her support, or a leader doesn't appreciate the people's support, although knowledge, big confused. Although the leader's knowledge may be great, there is still considerable confusion. So this is saying that maybe I don't have as much realized wisdom as I think, or maybe I don't lean on my realized wisdom as much as I think. Maybe I am still trying to control things. Maybe I think I am right and they are wrong. Maybe I think I am superior to them. Or maybe I think I'm not good enough and I'm always trying to prove myself. But something is off here with me if I don't value the people who support me and they don't value me. If there's not this mutual valuing going on, we could also say a mutual trusting going on, then something is wrong. And the one I want to look at is me. I don't blame them. I look at me. Whether it's me not valuing them, them not valuing me, or both. The problem is here. The error is here. The mistake is here. So I look at me to see where I am operating without realized wisdom. And I try and correct that in myself. If people don't value their teacher, or a leader doesn't appreciate the people's support, although the leader's knowledge may be great, there is still considerable confusion. And then the last line is called vital, essential, clever, subtle. Is called vital, essential. This is important. Clever, subtle, yet underemphasized. So the last paragraph. The realized person is a teacher for those who are not realized. Non-realized people provide support to realized leaders. If people don't value their teacher, or a leader doesn't appreciate the people's support, although the leader's knowledge may be great, there is still considerable confusion. This is important, yet underemphasized. So since I did some interpretation in my particular translation, I've decided to read from Derek Lin because, as we know, Derek Lin sticks much closer to the Chinese characters. So without the interpretation, this is what that chapter sounds like. Good traveling does not leave tracks. Good speech does not seek faults. Good reckoning does not use counters. Good closure needs no bar and yet cannot be opened. Good knot needs no rope and yet cannot be untied. Therefore, sages often save others and so do not abandon anyone. They often save things and so do not abandon anything. This is called following enlightenment. Therefore, the good person is the teacher of the bad person. The bad person is the resource of the good person. Those who do not value their teachers and do not love their resources, although intelligent, they are greatly confused. This is called the essential wonder. So that's Derek Lin's. Now, let's look at an assignment. The assignment is going to be pretty broad in a way. What this entire chapter is about living by that realized wisdom that's already within us. We don't have to acquire it. We don't have to learn it. We just have to let go of everything that's in its way, and the realized wisdom is there. So this chapter also talks about, it has this narrow statement that if the leader isn't valued by the people, or the leader doesn't value the support the people give, that there's some confusion there, right? And I mentioned that what we do is we look at ourselves. If everything is not right, we look at ourselves and find out, where am I listening to the other stuff instead of the enlightened wisdom? Okay, here's how we're going to broaden that. We're going to be open and aware for anything that seems off. It could be conflict with other people. It could be a problem that keeps resurfacing. It could be me not liking someone, or someone strongly not liking me, and that bothers me, right? I'm bugged by that. It could be something I'm not mentioning here. It could be over worrying about money. It could be focusing on the past in some relationship with someone and holding on to grievances. It could be that over planning of something in the future. It could be trying to control situations, trying to control others. If you contemplate this chapter, I'm sure whatever it is for you that needs to pop out will pop out, right? Whatever it is that's off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to realize this is off because I am not focused on enlightened wisdom. I am not focused on that intuition that comes from the Tao, that right mind that comes from the Tao. I'm focused on other thoughts. And then what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can, first of all, notice some of the other thoughts that are the big confusion. You know, for example, do I think I'm not good enough and I'm trying to prove myself? Do I think I'm better than everyone and more right than everyone? Do I think things need to be a certain way for me to be safe or happy? Is it something else? Try and find what it is that is the big confusion, and then see if I can place that aside without replacing it with anything. So when I place that aside, it kind of leaves me with an emptiness or an I don't know-ness. Place that aside and then just feel for whatever my role is. Maybe I am to say something. Maybe I am to do something. Maybe I am to let things be as they are. The only way to find out what my current role is to put aside the big confusion. So that's the assignment. And I'll see you when we come back to look at the next chapter. Bye.